on Bank Shots with my, could not be more proud of my guest, Amobi Okugo, a frugal athlete, current athlete, and actually about to go play a game tonight. Amobi,
Yeah.
how's the
What's
day
going
starting?
on? Early, but we promised the folks we give bank shots every week, so that's what we're doing. News and moves of the modern athlete.
Something about being consistent and being a pro, brother. That's what we do.
Exactly. So
All
let's get
right,
right into it.
let's get right into it. So the first topic today, because this is a conversation I've had with a couple of my neighbors, I'm starting to have with some coaches, both high school and collegiate. As a professional athlete, as somebody who has climbed the ranks and appreciating how precious each year is, I mean, you take a season away from so many careers and there is not a season. What is your depiction of high school athletes, and then we'll talk about college here in a second, but high school athletes chasing a season, moving, transferring, doing what they have to do to go and get this precious film in?
Yeah, it's but someone put it into like really good terms. Yeah. If you look at his career trajectory, obviously we're talking about high school, but I'm using college as a great example. That 1 year made the difference between him possibly going pro or undrafted to being the number one draft pick. So similar to high school, these high school prospects that, haven't been able to, do the elite camps or the identification camps or, use that senior year or junior year or sophomore year to really blossom in the sense of development and like showcase their skills. It's similar. It's the difference between, playing at a D1 college versus a D2 college or getting a full ride versus a partial scholarship. Obviously there's other concerns at hand, whether it's health or, eligibility or, being away from family. But when you're at that elite level, this is some of the sacrifices that some of these athletes are facing or want to go through and sacrifice for the opportunity to play at a higher level. So
So
I
you
think
don't see any reason to penalize players for chasing the season.
no, they do it already.
They do.
When they transfer teams or transfer to go to prep school or do different things like that, for a better opportunity to get seen by a larger database of college coaches or professional ranks.
What about in sports like soccer, basketball, and I believe even baseball, where at the high school level it is shifted to where your school is not the primary source of recruitment. It is the club team, the AAU, the kind of conventional that way. Do you see those still going forward and being available for young athletes to utilize?
Yes and no. Obviously, this situation currently is unique, but I think club ball or competitive ball is going to be the main source of where colleges and scouts like look for their talent.
You call it competitive ball, not so the high school rank is like
Yeah,
it's intramurals. This is the real
yeah,
game.
intramurals, interscholastic. Like I didn't play high school
Wow,
sports. I mean, my freshman year I did, but after that, I
it wasn't worth it.
nah, yeah, it wasn't worth it at all.
What did your team like? What did your high school coach or high school soccer team say? They
They were
understood it.
actually they were upset. They were
Yeah.
upset, but yeah, actually, because before we move on, but so my freshman year I went to all boys Jesuit high school. I played soccer and basketball, and then sophomore and junior year I moved to Florida because I was part of the U17 national team program. Then my senior year I came back, um, and they were like, "Oh, you're gonna come back to play basketball? You come back to play soccer?" But at that point, I was already playing on a really competitive soccer team, and I was already part of the youth national teams, and I wasn't gonna risk getting injured playing high school sports to put me at jeopardy of
Risk is
scholarship.
an interesting, and we're going to transition here to risk in a second. What is interesting to me is we don't penalize coaches. We don't penalize athletic directors. We don't penalize anyone outside of the unpaid scholarship athlete. And as I look at these high school kids, with every hope and every wish, you look at the Olympics, they work 4 years, they work a lifetime for what they just missed out on this summer. for a high school student saying, I have to go chase this endless summer. I have to chase season because if I don't, I miss my window. If I
Exactly.
miss my opportunity, my career, my life changes. And so I'm going to be very interested to see how high school handles it because there are going to be some all-star teams created. I know 3 students going to Utah to go and play in their season. And so
Really?
as you look at those high schools out there, you're like, well, they're playing. They're saying
Yeah.
we're on. And so it's by border. You can be 2 miles from a competitive high school that is going to play, and 2 miles away, it's not going to play. And then from a collegiate perspective, personally, I see Washington State, but I see USC, UCLA. I see all these universities starting to lose not only future recruits, but current prospects and players. Our number 1 receiver at Washington State has just entered the transfer portal because Washington State has no season. And he
Yeah.
is a year away from going to the league. And he's saying, hey, if I can, I'm going to go get a few more, routes. I'm going to get a few more touchdowns, highlights, and then I'm going to go play the game. It is going to be really interesting how we handle these non-employees from a penalization. From what are you going to take away from student athletes who do decide to treat their careers like a business? And I think we are really coming to the understanding that from a high school level, your freshman year, you made a grown-up professional decision. And it is going to be a tragedy if we start to penalize young athletes for treating this business like a business. Because as you know, and we've talked about, one of the first things we tell rookies is this is a business. You are the
Yeah.
CEO of your career. And I don't think we can penalize young athletes for acting like CEOs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's like imagine getting a job and they're like, no, you can't quit only when we tell you to quit.
Yeah.
It's like what? And you mentioned like star players. Who was it that just announced Justin Fields, quarterback for Ohio State? He's starting a petition to play. Like for some guys, this is like their livelihood. You talk about window of
Oh, yeah.
influence. That window of influence is only so small. So how can you expand it? And for some of these guys, it's the amount of reps that they can get, the amount of film they can get. And, you never know when you're going to have a breakout year.
And you never know when you're going to have the year that will change your life. Joe Burrow is an excellent example of that. So as we transition, one of the headlines we all hate to see is this idea that star players, walk-ons, undrafted, there is a fine line between being hurt and being injured. One of the headlines coming out of the Dallas Cowboys was Gerald McCoy, who for about 5 years was the number 1 player at his position, just had a season and possibly career-ending injury. And it's one that you hate to see. But even more so, not 12 hours later, the Dallas Cowboys released McCoy from his contract. So as a current athlete, how do you handle, you talked about risk a little earlier, how do you see this idea of contract, not guaranteed, injury? How do you handle all those emotions?
No, it's crazy. I want to bring it back to you because I feel like we see this a lot in football. You got guys playing hurt versus guys playing injured because these games matter. If you're not playing, it's next man up. So for a guy like Gerald McCoy, who's a veteran, he's been at the height of his career. It sucks because you plan to play despite obviously injuries are part of the game, but you never expect an injury to take you out and force you to be on the waiver list or retire prematurely. So for me, it's tough because if you play injured, are you playing to the best of your abilities? Like, does it affect your performance? But if you don't play, then you're giving someone else opportunity to take your spot. So, as a player, these are to try to figure out like that happy medium. It's like, yeah, you're tough, you're playing through injury, but you're playing worse. So now they use it as an excuse because, like, if you're on the field, they expect you to play 100% regardless, unless you're like, you're one of the top guys and they understand. But some people don't have that luxury. Yeah, some people don't have that luxury. It's like, suck it up. It's just a sprained ankle.
And that's what we really become to understand the difference and separation in is this idea of hurt, I can play. Injured, I physically cannot perform. And it's an interesting measurement that you brought up of once you're out there, you don't get an asterisk. Once you're out
Yeah.
on the field, you are being critiqued and truly rewarded by your performance. And so if you are injured and your performance slips, they will hold that against you. I remember very vividly one season that I was discussing with the Saints. They brought up a play. They brought up this one play. I was engaged, and the defensive end beat me outside, went and created a sack. That was the only sack I gave up that season, but it was a very pivotal moment. Now, what they didn't tell you, or what they weren't willing to listen to, was my arm was out of the socket. My left arm went limp, and you could see on film it just fell to the side, and that's where the guy beat me and went and made the sack. But nobody cared. Nobody cared that I was injured. They said Drew Brees got sacked. That was your man. That's the end of the conversation. And so as you look at this, I want to know financially now, the risk factor. Football will never be able to get guaranteed contracts because it is far too violent. There are too many players, and really we don't have the leverage to negotiate that. But as an athlete, how do you prepare financially for the career to be over in a split second?
Yeah, that's a great topic that you bring up. I think first and foremost, any athlete, depending on who you could talk to, obviously make sure you talk with your team, your financial experts, but definitely have some sort of disability insurance on your name. Because when you play such a physical sport, the likelihood of getting injured is high. So if you sign a big contract, if you're worried about your leverage, possibly getting injured, it's an ability to protect yourself and give you some sort of fallback just in case you're not able to perform and get the contract that you were able to negotiate. Teams do it for their players, so you might as well do it for yourself. So that's first and foremost. Yeah, exactly. Secondly, always think of, like you said, think of your current contract as your last. So how are you going to be able to stretch it out? Specifically in NFL, you get paid per game, 17 weeks, 18 weeks. How many weeks?
17.
Yeah, so 17 weeks, and you're supposed to make that last for 52. So How do you make 17 weeks last for 52? For soccer, you play, 9 months out of 12 months. So obviously you get paid, on a yearly basis, but how do you ration out what your expenses during the season versus off season? Because some guys go back home, some guys stay vacation. How do you ration that out, and how do you expect to support yourself through the next transfer window? Because you might not be able to get that next contract. So that's my mindset, and that's how I've gone about, not only cash flow, cash management, but understanding that I may get injured and how can I prepare.
I love that you brought up disability insurance, because this is one, a transfer of risk that not many athletes really appreciate or really even understand. And it starts possibly in your collegiate career. If you have the draft potential, you have the leverage to go and ensure that potential income. And so the difference between disability and long-term care insurance is, what are you protecting? Disability insurance, you are protecting your income. I have a contract that over the next 3 years, I'm supposed to make 5, 10, whatever $1 million. Even if it's at your job and I have a $100,000 job, over the next 5 years, I'm going to make $500,000. That is what I want protected in disability insurance. Long-term care, on the other hand, is protecting your assets. So it is saying, I understand I'm going to be bedridden. I'm going to be in need of care for a long period of time. I want something else to pay for this, so it doesn't come out of my net worth in my pocket. So it is a really interesting designation between long-term care and disability, two what-if scenarios. What if I lose my income? What if I need long-term care and health and somebody to help me? So as an athlete, disability insurance, if you're an undrafted rookie, probably not. If you're a high-profile player going into your second career, or a high-profile prospect coming out of college, it is a conversation we need to start having more and more. It needs to be a natural communication of how we're going to protect your cash. I also love what you just said about the idea that you treat every contract like your last. The rookie curse is, I can't wait till my next contract. I can't wait
Oh yeah,
until the payoff. I mean, you see,
yeah,
you're 10 years in. I'm sure every year you've heard that comment.
yeah. Yeah, everyone plays for that second contract, but there's
Everyone.
only so many people that are lucky to get that.
There's only so many. And that's what, as an athlete, I always love to say 30% to 30-year-old you, as a, normal person with a normal income, a dime. I made $1, I saved a dime is a great starting place. But it is such a true realization of why the modern day athlete is becoming a business both on the field and off the field, is because of situations like Gerald McCoy, where you go from being a perennial Pro Bowler to being released to questioning the rest of your career. Are you ever even going to get another contract? And I just think that's a really, really interesting piece. This is a question I wanted to ask you because you are currently pursuing this pleasure, this prize, championships right now. The NBA, the NHL are wrapping up. MLS soccer is on its go. What do you value, or how are you explaining what a championship means right now?
I think a lot of people have been talking about like, okay, this season is like an asterisk to it, but at the end of the day, everyone's going through it. It's not like one team is like has an advantage over the other.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, it still matters just as much. That's why some of these guys are still competing and making sure that they're putting their all, not only because of like specific situations within their contracts, whether than being on the last year or whether than trying to outplay. A perfect example would be TJ Warren on the Indiana Pacers, who's been in the NBA bubble and just playing amazing basketball. So now his stock increases and he has better leverage when he goes and tries to renegotiate. While he could have, not played and, let the chips fall where they may. So for a championship, obviously for like the pundits and like the past champions, they can say, it doesn't mean as much, but for the guys that are currently playing, girls that are currently playing, it means all the same because everyone else is going through the same issues at hand as well.
I think that is such a perfect idea of, it's a level playing field. Yeah. Anytime it's a level playing field, I walk out there, you walk out there as professionals, as veterans to compete for that prize. You can say it's not going to be the same. You can say it won't matter as much, all you want, until you walk that trophy into, the center of the room and everybody looks at each other. And I literally just got chills thinking about that. Once that prize is there, the competitiveness is no different. I have actually started to enjoy watching the NHL, the NBA, soccer right now, because I appreciate the mental challenges these professional athletes are overcoming right now. I would argue this championship is going to be perhaps not the greatest team of all time, but it is going to be the greatest prize because you are overcoming not just your own physical ailments. Most of these players yourself, are you typically playing in August? No.
Yeah, no.
You have those physical hurdles. You have the mental hurdles of what is going on in the world. And then at the end of the day, you have that person on the other side of the field or the court or whatever staring back at you saying, I want this just as bad, if not more than you. It is so interesting to me that people are starting to, decrease the importance and the value of what this trophy is going to mean. College football aside, because college football, you are removing some of your competition. And so that may alter it. Let's not kid ourselves. The SEC champion was probably going to be the national or Clemson. But
which coach said
the
that
reality is all those. I think that was Dabo. I think that was the Clemson coach. But the reality is, once that trophy is set and you say we are all competing for that, you cannot discredit who earns it, who wins it, because they will have overcome a tremendous amount of risk, a tremendous amount of distraction, and where most will walk down this path and find a reason to sit down, to turn, or to turn around. why veterans, why professionals like yourself are still doing it and are still out there competing is because they have the blinders. They have the ability to say, I don't care whatever ESPN floating head says. I know what this means to me. I know what it means to my team, and I know what it means to my career. I want to go and win that prize. I saw it so much.
No, that's what it's all about. Yeah, you're exactly right.
So as we transition, this is one I'm excited to talk about because he was a teammate, he was a friend, and now he is sitting in a very interesting role. And one of the most humble cats I've ever come across, Jason Wright.
So this is the athlete of the week?
This is our athlete of the week. Sorry, okay, I need to, yeah. Our athlete of the week, Jason Wright, who was just announced as the president of the new Washington football team. I don't believe they've chosen a mascot yet, so formerly known as one thing, the football team out in Washington, D.C., not state. He was a 7-year NFL running back. And what I loved about Jason was he was not the star. He was not the give the guy 20, 30 carries a game. He was the intangibles guy. He played special teams. He returned kickoffs. He picked up blitzes. He did all the things you were supposed to do. He's a Northwestern grad. He studied for both his GMAT and his MCAT. He's an extremely bright cat. But the story I wanted to share, and I was so excited to share, that you will know everything you need to know about this I would say young man, but he's 37, 38. This man in one story was, I was with him in Cleveland. And as a running back, we were in the same room, so we became friends. As a Northwestern intellectual, I really enjoyed kind of getting to bounce some things off of him and learn from him. And as I transitioned, I got cut. He got picked up by the Cardinals, traded. I ended up bouncing around, landed in Arizona with him. And so we became friends in Cleveland, and I landed with him in Arizona. And the first day I get to Arizona, there's an envelope sitting in my locker. And I open up the envelope, and it's $250 cash. And I look around, and I'm like, this is a pretty cool place. You know what I mean? Like, I won't mind if I walk in and get a little envelope, but I'm like, this isn't, I don't know who this is from. Jason being the only person in the building that I really knew, I went up to him. I said, hey man, this envelope was in my locker. What does this mean? Like, what am I supposed to do with it? And he said, I can't tell you, I am so sorry. I was like, well, what are you sorry for? I don't have an extra car. I wish I could give you a rental car, because I know it's going to be hard getting around. So I wanted to give you that so you can go get your first week or two of your rental car taken care of. I was excited you were here, and I feel really, really bad that I couldn't be more hospitable. And I looked at him in disbelief. I was astounded by, one, his generosity, his humility, but just the compassion. He had been the new player. He had been the young guy. He had been the, I don't know what's going on, which way's up and down. And he wanted to make a gesture to not only make me feel included, but make me feel a part and make it more easy for me to be here. So I saw this hire, and I would be curious, as you see this hire, young, he's under 40, African-American, head of a questionably led organization over the past few years. What do you think of a hire like Jason in that kind of position?
I think it's an amazing hire. I think it's a testament to Jason Wright, and this story, the story that you just you brought up, it shows why he's the president of Washington, the new Washington football team. I don't even know the name of it. They need to get that situated, yeah. But like that just shows his compassion, his ability to see ahead, and the fact that he can, manage things. And if you look at his timeline, his career, you said Northwestern undergrad, GMAT, MCAT, and it's not he just like took the test. He scored 98th percentile for both. I was looking at his resume, Chicago grad school. He goes and works for McKinsey, one of the top organizations, and becomes a partner. And within his role there, it's transforming businesses. Obviously, Washington is in need of that right now. So it's an excellent hire, someone that knows the league, someone that's been in the corporate space, and someone that, by all accounts, is just a great human being, great gentleman. So for the athletes that are watching, I think it's a great testament to show that there's many ways to get involved in sports after your career than rather just like a coach or a GM or, defensive specialist or things like that. Like there's so many avenues to be involved in sports business or just be involved in corporate or be an entrepreneur. And Jason Wright's just one example.
He is a tremendous example. And as you just said, every step of the way has shown compassion, has shown leadership, has shown consciousness of his surroundings. And he's built communities along the way, not just in the NFL with the veterans, but at McKinsey, he was formulating African-American executives across the country. Doesn't matter what industry, he wanted to unite this community of leaders for the next generation. And so I see this as one of the best hires I've seen in a while because I know him on a personal level. That story is one I have shared 100 times because it means everything about how you see an individual, and it does not shock me or surprise me that he is in the role that he is in today. We talked about the financial tip of the day for the modern day athlete is disability insurance. We saw that example through Gerald McCoy. Any parting shots you want to leave the people, brother? We're on a roll. We're starting to get our rhythm, our segments. I like it.
No, yeah, it's great. Like Jed has said, shots every Wednesday, news and moves of modern athlete. This will be on both our YouTube platforms, audio channels, and micro clips across all social platforms. We're live every Wednesday. Thank you guys for supporting. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback. Last week, you had that clip about fiduciary and non-fiduciary. A lot of people gravitated towards that. This week, being able to break down insurance, disability versus long-term. You look at a situation like Ryan Shazer from the Steelers versus like a Gerald McCoy, and like how understanding different types of injuries involve different types of insurance. So now I'm having fun, and I'm glad people can tune in and see what we're doing.
Absolutely, brother. Enjoy the day. Bank shots. We out.
Peace.